The Rambam in the laws of Deos, meaning he speaks about the different types of personalities. People have different types of inborn traits, characteristics. People are naturally giving, people are not naturally miserly, and various levels of each one. Generous, people are pompous, people are naturally humble, speaks about everything. Let's talk about a person he's referred to as tsarayin. The word tsar means he has a narrow eye. He doesn't see very broadly. There's so much to see out there. There's so much to process and feel for people, do for people. This man sees nothing. He only sees himself. He glosses over everything but himself. This is a person who's naturally miserly. Now, a person who's miserly, he points out, is a very negative trait. Why? Because God does everything measure for measure. You help your fellow, you're sensitive to someone else, God will have mercy on you. If you're not sensitive to someone else, and we're not talking about being overly generous, person's really miserly, withholding, tight-fisted, Hashem will be Kaviochel, tight-fisted to that person. He explains that, a good part of the Torah are mitzvahs between man and fellow. And many of those mitzvahs, those positive commandments, are dictated and driven by one's level of feeling for another person. For instance, the law is that if a person finds a lost article, and the majority of the people live in the area are Jews, you have an obligation to take possession of the article as a custodian and hold it for that person who had lost it, and try to find out who exactly is the owner to return the stolen object, the lost object, to that person. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, and it's time-consuming. But nevertheless, Torah says that's the obligation of a Jew. Doesn't mean you have to. You can delegate it to try to find out. Or you could see something, just gloss over, just let it lie there. I'm too busy to be bothered. Certain people are too busy with their own lives to be bothered with anything but themselves. And people resort to many things because of this miserliness. Whatever they have, they never have enough. The reason why they don't share is because they have this narrow eye, this unforgiving eye, and they don't want to share with anyone. They won't give you the time of day. Or as I said the other day, there's certain people, they won't give you ice in the winter. Literally. That's how tight-fisted they are. Doesn't cost you anything. But he points out something else. The people who won't do a person a favor will not lend money, but not only won't they lend a man who's needing money, they won't even allow other people to lend them money. Why? Because the person who's withholding, he doesn't want to look bad. How does it look? Others are generous. He's not generous. So what does he do? He discourages others from lending that person or for helping that person. I'll tell you a story. It had to do with this person was a member of KJ, made mistakes. He paid the price for his mistake. So after he needed to be put back on his feet financially, he had a family. And I was involved in helping him. Rabbi Luxstein was involved in helping him. Together, Rabbi Luxstein were involved in helping this person. There were a person in that community went out of their way, and they themselves were not hurt by the original mistake. They were not hurt. But because they said he did something, you can't trust the man, you shouldn't help the man, has no relevance to you. You don't want to help, don't help. You don't want to get involved, don't. Why are you going out of your way to cut off the person at every possibility of opportunity, financial, that he should be able to pay his rent and put food on the table? What does that say? It speaks terrible things about these people. Where's your sense of mercy? And you weren't even the victim. You say you're victimized, you're hurt, and you want to take revenge. Even that's not permitted, but you have no relevance to it. No, he's not a good person. You shouldn't help him. So Chavetz Chaim says that emanates from this kind of person. Because a person who's not willing to do himself, if others do, it doesn't reflect well on the one who doesn't do. So that person does whatever he can to try to discourage other people from doing for that person, because he doesn't want to look bad. You understand? Not only that, he says, a Jew is not permitted to lend money with interest. The wiser person, tight-fisted when it comes to giving away his money, because he doesn't want to share it. And he refers to it, this is, we speak about the golden calf. We had the gold standard in the United States. People, they worship the golden calf. Today they call it the holy dollar. Everything revolves around that. Their life revolves around it. They'll protect it and they'll kill for it. And God forbid kill, but we'll speak about it in a moment. The law is you're not permitted to lend your money with interest. But this person is so paranoid regarding his money that he will even be in violation of the law of lending his money with interest, because he's not going to give anybody else the money interest-free, because he's miserly. So he'll only do it if it's in his best interest. It's how's in the best interest. If I get a return on the money, it's a whole different story. Then it's for me. I'm increasing my asset. Shlomo says in Mishlei, King Solomon, not only will you not increase it, you're going to diminish it. You're going to diminish it. The person who's anxious, just take it all in, ultimately he's going to lose it all. Hashem says, you think you're going to get away with this. By making more, ultimately, everything's going to collapse. And you can lose it all. And if you don't lose it in this world, you lose it in the world to come. But again, where is it coming from? Because people, the level of greed they have, it really emanates from greed to a degree. Usually miserliness and greed go hand in hand. I don't want a share of mine with yours, to you. I don't want it. He points out, he gives a scenario, and it's based on a medrash. This man goes to borrow money from someone, and his wife initially was pushing him. He says, but one time I was a self-earner, now I have to go borrow. I prefer not to embarrass myself. His wife says, but you have to. You can't stand on ceremony. We need a loan. Go ask this person for a loan. See, he knows people don't give loans easily. So he figures at a time that he will be least burdensome on this person. He'll come at a time that he's not busy. He'll come at a time where he's at home, that he has the money available. He'll come with his collateral. He'll come with a guarantor. He has everything set up to go. He goes to the person's house, and the setting seems to be right, and he's hopeful, and his children are hopeful that they can have food on the table that night, and his wife is hopeful, comes in, the man dismisses him like without a care in the world. But the man came. Why don't you hear his story? Wanted it. Too busy. So the Midrash says, quotes it based on the Zohar, that this person who behaves this way, firstly, you realize, it says, God will have mercy on those who have mercy for others. God has no mercy for this person. If this man doesn't even have the time of day to try to even listen to the man's needs, and he's come with everything and hopeful that you will respond, and you just swat him away like a fly, God will swat you away like a fly. But not only that, this is really the problem. It activates the attribute of justice on the whole world. Because if there are these kinds of people, God is Machal Chaim B'Chesed. God sustains life with kindness. But for this kind of guy, these kinds of people, God turns off the spigot. And as a result of turning off the spigot, God forbid, endless people suffer. And why are they suffering? Because this is one miserly person who behaved this way. But the question is, why should the whole world be culpable for this man's behavior? But there's always two things. There's a thing we call communal responsibility. And very often, people are aware of this person's behavior, and people just let it go. He's not reined in on. He's not spoken to. Why? People are intimidated very often. Or, I don't want to meddle. Thank God I don't need him. But look at what he's doing to others. He has the ability to make a difference, and he couldn't care less. You know something? He should be ostracized from the community. You shouldn't treat him as if whatever, he's somebody special, because he's not special. It's like people say, there's no check I can write. So, so write the check. That's the question. Do you know how much money I have? So I say to the person, what relevance does it have to me that you have so much money? Are you putting money in my pocket? Not putting money in my pocket. In whose pocket are you putting the money? In your own. Only if it benefits you. Doesn't benefit you, you have no interest. So why should anybody have an interest in you? Why should anybody even acknowledge you? What do you do? Many years ago, there was a shamus, Fifth Avenue Synagogue. He was a very special man. He was a tzaddik. His name was David Finkelstein. And he really made Fifth Avenue Synagogue. He was the founding shamus in that shul. And he himself used to tell me, he used to have an appeal for Israeli bonds once a year. And people who had money, what would they do? They'd say, $100,000 worth of bonds they're buying. Okay? So what do? You could go and buy a $100,000 bond, you could cash it in right away. After they bought it, they cashed it in. So the glory, they got the glory. Maybe they took a slight loss, but you know what it means to get the glory for a $100,000 bond. You're going to wait years to cash it in, and you may donate it. But these people, all they wanted was the glory. If there's no glory, they give nothing. That's the way these people are. And unfortunately, many people are this way. They're paranoid. They're not trusting. Whatever it is, does make a difference. But the Jewish people are Rahmanim b'nei Rahmanim. We have that innate, inborn, almost need to be helpful to another person. If we hear it, if we feel it, we're able to internalize the other person's lack or pain. It's interesting. He quotes a pasuk, a verse, which this pasuk is cited in Midrash regarding Korach. Korach is a lengthy story. He normally took down the Jewish people. He launched a mutiny against Moshe Rabbeinu. What was it all about? It was all about his ego, his honor. He felt he was denied something which he shouldn't have been denied. What was he denied? He's the richest commoner in the Jewish people in the history of the world. He has wealth, untold wealth. He felt he should have been chosen to be the high priest. Aaron, you know something, Moshe, if you'd only appreciate who I am and know I am, I should even have your position, or your brother's position, or minimally the third position. How do you push me out? But you have everything in the world. Because he has such wealth, and if you read the Midrash, you know what he did when he launched this mutiny to try to usurp Moshe Rabbeinu's power? He went and he made a tremendous banquet. He invited all the people to the banquet. He wined and dined. And they saw who the man is, what he's able to provide, what he's able to. So everybody wants to call favor with him. That was a ploy, how to get the people against Moshe Rabbeinu. And he went and he made these kinds of so-called banquets, parties, because when they saw his wealth, but who was he doing it for? He was doing it for them. He wasn't doing it for them. He was doing it for himself. See, he was a person, Shlomo says, Nivo lahon ishro ayin. The one who's overwhelmed because he wants to take it all in, wants wealth, his man has a bad eye. This man has a bad eye. He's a stingy guy. He's a miserly person. And even when the miserly person does, you got to be recipient beware, because this man does for nobody. And if he's doing for you, he has a tremendous interest in you for whatever it is. You're not even aware of it, what it's going to cost you. There's a story in Prophets with David HaMelech. He had sent somebody to the front and he was killed, and he married his wife, took his wife. Her name was Bathsheba. She was the mother of King Solomon. Ultimately, so the Navi, the prophet, Nosson Navi comes to rebuke David. And he says to David, there was this widow, she had a sheep. And with the sheep, she supported her children who were orphans. She would sell the shearings, she would milk it, and then a man comes and slaughters the sheep and takes it away from her. What does that person deserve? The man who victimizes this widow with the orphans. David says, he's the king. He says he deserves to be put to death. A man who's so heartless deserves to be put to death. So Nosson says, David, that's you. By you sending the man to the front and taking his wife, that's what you did. What did you have a right to do what you did? And the way you did it. And David realized that he had a degree of insensitivity over here, and he was culpable for serious punishment. It wasn't considered, the man deserved to be put to death because he rebelled against the king, whatever, that's not the issue. But mainly over here, the main claim again over there was that if a person is stone-hearted and you totally have no feeling for another person, that's the claim. It's not the claim what you do here, because this person you've done that, but how do you have a right to behave this way? God gives you so much, you think it's only for you. And the Medrash says, when a poor man comes to ask you for something, you know who's right alongside him? God. And God, Hashem wants to see, what are you going to do? Are you going to help him? You're not going to help him. You help him, God is very happy. If you don't help him, well, you can help him, God is upset. And because God is upset, ultimately, it will activate the attribute of justice. Or we're going to switch places here. The poor man who you turn down, you who are the rich man, you're going to become the poor man, and the poor man is going to become the rich man. That's what's going to happen. We're going to switch roles over here. Talmud tells us there were two responsibilities in terms of there were people who raised money for charity. They were appointed by the community to raise money, that there was like a head tax. Every family had to give a certain amount. And then they were the one who would distribute the money, would allocate it to the various people of various needs. So one of the rabbis, Talmud says, I prefer to be among those who collect the money, not the ones who disperse it. Why? Collecting, relatively speaking, doesn't take much responsibility. Worst to worst, you get flack. Right? You want to collect the head tax, the man doesn't want to give, so you have to get into a little bit of a argument, but you pull it out of him. He may not like you. But when you disperse the money and you give it out, what happens if you give too much to a person who needs less, and a person who needs more, you give them less? It's a whole different level of responsibility. He says, I prefer to be among those who raise the money for charity, not the ones who disperse it. Because when it comes to the disbursement, if you're not on target and to give a person what he truly needs and you fall short of it, there's a claim against you. Because the question is, why wasn't your evaluation correct? Must be. It had to do with your ego or whatever else it may have been. And as a result of that, there's greater level of culpability for the disbursements rather than the one who raises the money. That's what the Gemara says. It's not an easy task. King Solomon says he sees an illness. It's literally like a mental illness. It's the worst. That not only is he miserly regarding others, even regarding himself. He doesn't use his own means to address basic needs of his own. That's how miserly he is. And it's a bad, it's almost like a mental illness. You can't spend your own money. Who are we speaking for? You could afford to live like a human being, you live like a subhuman being. You could afford food and you deny yourself food, the basic amenities of life. Why? Because you're concerned. You can have less. That's how paranoid the person is. But that's like a mental illness. But he says this all stems from what? From this, an impure spirit, which comes upon that person due to his lack of sensitivity for others. Ultimately, he's not even sensitive to himself. As they used to say, you're going to eat your own crow. That's what you're going to eat. If you don't feel for others, you won't even feel for yourself. And you'll be the victim of your own behavior.